Please give him a warm round of applause.
Hey, good morning. I know we've been hammering through about an hour and 40 minutes of really exciting things, and what we're going to do in the next 10 minutes, I have one goal: to make you curious about how you rethink aviation. Fair enough. It's kind of a bold proposition for 10 minutes or less. So a little bit about background. At Skyworks, we are the world leader in gyronautics. Think of it as sustained auto-rotative flight. You know, we have everybody in this room is affected by this thing called mobility, where they're doing it on the ground or we're talking about it in the air. It's a very exciting time in mobility, isn't it? Every day there's a new concept for an urban air taxi, for us that want to fight, this tyranny of traffic. Every day there's a new occurrence or change or innovation that's going on how we reconceptualize the whole notion of how we move about the world. Right here down the street, the birthplace of Uber and Lyft, completely altered forever the way people think about travel on the ground. Fair? And the notion of rideshare. I'm here to tell you about how you can rethink about how we move through the air. Why am I here to do this? Well, first, I'm passionate about mobility. I've been involved in it my whole life. I'm a former Air Force general who, in my last responsibility, was to lead NATO's effort to build a $7 billion Afghan Air Force. You want a hard problem? Go build an Air Force in a war zone. But what I'm telling you about here are the same concepts that we're applying at Skyworks, are the same concepts that allow us to turn that around. And in 2014, win the world's nation-building effort award for what we did. So here's what we're talking about. Imagine if there was a safer, simpler way to think about the economics of mobility. Right now, if we look at what's going on in the world, the challenge isn't just the cost of airframes, right? My goodness, I can show you helicopters we're building today that cost over $100 million. And I'm not just talking on the military side. When we look at the cost of air travel, we have a lot caught up in the platform, but the real costs, right, are tied up in sustainment. For every amount we invest in an aircraft, we have a whole tail of logistics and a whole tail of sustainment from everything from concrete to towers to buildings. Why this matters? It's an issue, if you will, in the first world, but think about the continued developing and evolving world. Think about places like India, China, Africa, where 2/3 of the world right now is locked out of sustainable, that's the key word, sustainable aviation solutions. Because when you look at the full cost of what it takes to be able to have an aviation solution. And why an aviation solution? It's legitimacy, it's transformative to an economy, it's transformative to how people move about. So what we've done for years is we believe there's an opportunity. We've talked a lot about new things, but I would tell you the definition of innovation that I like is when you take existing things and organize them in a new and novel way. We actually do call that innovation. And I'm going to show you an example of our idea is built on something that's actually proven. This is not a leap of faith. What happens, what you see here in this kind of very interesting looking aircraft, is in the 1950s there was this notion out of Britain and all of Europe that we need to create a flying bus. Now I tell you, I don't know about y'all, but if you experience some of the traffic I do in places like Chicago and here, we all wish we could get on a bus that would turn what is an hour and a half commute into a 20-minute commute. That was the original concept. Was there a more effective way to be able to get from here to there and do it quickly and do it efficiently and change the economics of mobility to do it 50 cents on the dollar? Listen to that again, 50 cents on the dollar. So what happened is a bold group of folks set out to create what is the ferry rotodyne. It was underwritten by the British government, and what they did in the 1950s, on this day in 1957, when it did its maiden flight, is he took the best elements of a helicopter and blended it with the best elements of an airplane. And together on that day, they set a land speed record. They flew from downtown, vertical takeoff, horizontal flight, vertical landing from London to Paris. At that time, no one could conceptualize an aircraft that could do those kind of things flying very fast. It set a record at that time of 166 miles an hour, downtown to downtown. During its tenure of several years while this effort was going on, it flew over 1,000 passengers. Okay? It flew almost 300 missions, and it did it at a 99% reliability at a fraction of the cost. 60 years ago, we were showing something that essentially transformed aviation. Now, if we had a lot of time, we'd go through, well, John, if this is such a great idea, why hasn't anybody commercialized it yet? I would tell you it was the right technology at the wrong time. Let me remind you, Uber is not an original idea. Uber is nothing more than the jitney. That was founded 100 years ago. And at that time, it was something that worked and started to get adoption, but it wasn't the right time for it to go to scale for a number of reasons. Same thing with this technology. The British government at the time who had the contracts chose to consolidate airlines, and so this kind of went to the wayside. But it didn't stay there very long. Here's why this matters. I told you it's not just the cost of aircraft that matter that unlock aviation for the world. It's how do we go about now and make that economical and sustainable. So what we're talking about is gyroplanes, the best of an airplane, the best of a helicopter. When you look at helicopters, we only sell 1,000 helicopters globally. Why? They're very expensive to maintain. It's not just the flight, it's the maintenance part over the life cycle. And so this is why in a lot of places helicopters sit around. And the reason is they're very, very complex. The way that rotor assembly is built and all the linkages make for a very costly proposition. But what we care about is vertical takeoff. So what if we could take that, eliminate the need for the linkages and all the complexity, and because the way a rotor works in flight is it's always in auto rotation. You have nature's most elegant design for flight right behind you. That's why helicopters are so interesting. But what if I could take this propeller, and now that was on top of an airplane, if you will, the rotor, and then I can actually put jets, or I could put propellers on an airplane to move it forward. So now as the airplane's moving forward to get speed, this notion of auto rotation is actually increasing lift, which together, I've reduced the complexity, I've increased the degree of simplicity, and I've dramatically increased the affordability, because I've squeezed so much complexity out. And what I've done here has been able to create a very elegant way to be able to achieve vertical takeoff without a runway. Think about the infrastructure challenges you eliminate. The reason we're talking to people in Africa and the Philippines and a number of other nations right now is because if you can forego a lot of the investment that we require to sustain that, you can transform an economy. Let's look at how we're applying this. Applications are pretty significant. I can talk about it from the military standpoint. That's the easy one. But think about when you add this to autonomous, integrate autonomous capabilities and everything else. There is no mission set today that you cannot do at a fraction of the price with this capability. Here's how we're doing. This is our Scout Hawk model. The Gyrotron here. There was a big celebration last week at CES, right? Because Boeing unveiled their new autonomous cargo drone that could lift 500 pounds. Well, you can look at the numbers up here. The reality is the economics of sustained automated flight through the gyro drones or these type of applications, you can actually now start to do these at scale. This technology scales very nicely. I'm going to show you. So this is optionally manned. Think about it in permissive and non-permissive environments. Think about it for everything from reconnaissance to moving small packages to moving medical aid. There's the Hawk 4. This aircraft actually flew back in 2002 in the Salt Lake City Olympics. It did perimeter security with a 100% sustainability maintenance rate. The fact is, this is the kind of capabilities we're talking about in countries in Africa right now, where they need to move 5 or 6 people. They need to move, if you will, over 1,000 pounds. So whether you're moving things, you're moving people. The nice thing is this particular model may not look sexy like some of the urban air taxis, and we have sexy designs, but my point today is to make you curious. And the point is, when you have a sheet metal design, these type of capabilities can drop into an algorithm first world nation, and they can scale almost immediately. In 2005, the precursor to our company was selected by DARPA. DARPA is the company of the government that creates all the really cool, amazing things. And we were created to do something that had never been done. Take the fastest helicopter vertical lift capability in the world and double it. So what was born was the heliplane. From 2005 to 2008, the heliplane actually passed phase 1 of the DARPA project. Only 20% of all aircraft or projects ever do that. When you look at those speeds, 400 miles an hour on a vertical takeoff aircraft, look at the distances and you look at the range. We've just re-engaged the Department of Defense because the Department of Defense's #1 problem today is vertical lift and speed. And no one's been able to achieve that outside of something that's extraordinarily complex and extraordinarily expensive. Now think about the economics for air travel. We talked about this as born originally as a flying bus. We're caught up in flying taxis, but I'd like for someone to show me the map and how moving 3 people at a time is going to get you there. The reality is what we need is, especially in places where tyranny of distance matters. I go back to India, China, Africa, South America, anywhere. If we were right now in the airline industry, we've actually hedged fuel, we've already done all the things we can do to be able to renegotiate contracts. We've basically done everything. We've got the economics of this down to a wire. We've got our seat, per rate down to, there's nothing else to adjust. You've got to change the technology. Imagine doing what the Ferry Rotodyne set out to do, except in modern terms. Any aircraft with a high wing could be modified with this technology right now to be able to start to achieve those kind of numbers at about 60 cents on the dollar to what an airline is doing today, while concurrently making them much more sustainable. And with all the changes going on in technology, we're currently in the process, like I said, we're working with automation experts. All these aircraft can be optionally manned. When you look at electrification, one of the members of our board is Dr. Peter Littlewood, former director of Argonne Labs. So So electrification matters. We're building hybrid versions of this that already today, our designs can do 15 minutes plus of sustained flights just on batteries. We know that's the direction the world's going in. It's just going to take a while to get there. And composites and propulsion. The engine that was tested 50 years ago, today, we have engines that produce 350 pounds of thrust that weigh less than 350 pounds. Why you care is all these things reduce weight, increase payload, reduce complexity, and reduce the overall cost of what it takes to be able to deliver a full aviation capability to a nation. Bottom line, this is it. In a world where it's the key to legitimacy, the key to being able to open up new opportunities for nations, not just in the first world, but I would tell you that 2/3 of the world today that does not have sustainable aviation lies in these elements. It lies in thinking through, what if we can bring something to bear that can eliminate the need to pour a lot of concrete, build a lot of towers, pour a lot of runways, and continue to add to congestion. The way you do it is you maximize the best of what goes up, what goes forward, and what goes down. We call that sustained auto-rotator flight, and at Skyworks, we believe that's what's going to completely transform the way people experience air travel in the not-too-distant future. Thanks much.